I'm Jess, and it's so great to be with you for a few moments today. Welcome to Kingston Standard Church, our online version. I'd love to invite you to connect with us online or in person. If you're in the Kingston area, come on out. We would love to see you. If you're limited to online connection though, not a problem. Just be sure to check out our website for at-home worship resources. But in the description box of this video, you're going to find the link to our website. As well, you can always follow us on YouTube and like us on Facebook, and be sure to subscribe to both so that you'll stay up to date on all the new content when it's posted. We have a variety of resources available to families and kids on both Facebook and YouTube, so if this is your first time joining us, or if you've been here before, we want to encourage you to go ahead and check that out, because our mission is to equip families for the conversations that they have together to learn and grow and follow Jesus. And if you want to touch base personally, then feel free to reach out. You can send us a message on Facebook, or you can use the address below. So let's dive in and see what we're going to learn about today.
You know, I think that there are some times when we may need to rethink the way we approach life, right? I've mentioned to many of you before how one day in one of the places I was working, the guys I was working with, he invited me to be a part of an overnight shark fishing expedition. And it sounded really cool, but I had these appointments. I just didn't want to readjust. So I ended up declining. And wouldn't you know, that trip caught the largest shark on record in that body of water. And I could have been there. I mean, the docking of the boat made the local news. The guy I worked with is now the record holder. I declined because I didn't want to adjust a few appointments. And we've all had those kind of moments, right? Where we look back and we go, I should have done that differently. I wish I'd known then what I know now. I would have done, or I would have waited, or I would have saved, you know. And in those times, we don't always realize how small decisions are making a larger impact in our lives. We may look at it and just kind of think it's a small choice and go, it's not a big deal, right? But small decisions accumulate in our lives, and sometimes they have a bigger influence in our lives than we may realize at the time. And some decisions we encounter, they can actually be turning points that we don't appreciate until much later, or even until it's too late. And today, as we look at the scripture, we're going to see one of those kind of situations and what we can discover from it. We're going to see this cautionary account of a person who made decisions that led him in a direction that he really did not want to go. And as a result of the decision that seemed okay at the time, he experienced a significant shift in how different his life looked in the aftermath of his choices. And so this is actually the account of Isaac and Rebekah's boys, Jacob and Esau. And it's found in Genesis chapter 25, starting to read at verse 24. And verse 24 starts us off with a little bit of the back story, the origin story. And it says, "And when the time came to give birth, Rebekah discovered that she did indeed have twins. The first one was very red at birth and covered with thick hair like a fur coat. So they named him Esau. Then the other twin was born, and his hand was grasping at Esau's heel. So they named him Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when the twins were born." So Esau, who is the firstborn, by rights, in his culture, he's set apart as special, right? He's going to become the de facto head of the family to lead them in the days to come. And he also stands to inherit a double portion of his father's estate. So there's a lot of money and prestige that's a part of this role. I mean, it's hard to exaggerate how significant this position was that Esau held due to his firstborn status. And some of you have read ahead and you know what happens next. Things didn't go according to that plan entirely, did they? In verse 27 it continues, "As the boy As the boys grew up, Esau became a skillful hunter. He was an outdoorsman, but Jacob had a quiet temperament, preferring to stay at home. Isaac loved Esau because he enjoyed eating the wild game Esau brought home. Rebekah loved Jacob, and one day Jacob was cooking some stew. Esau arrived home from the wilderness, exhausted and hungry. Esau said to Jacob, "I'm starved. Give me some of that red stew." And this is how Esau got his other name, Edom, which means red. "All right," Jacob replied, "but trade me your rights as the firstborn son." Now, if this was a negotiation, Jacob really starts out with a big demand, right? A high bar. Sign over your special status. If you're so hungry, give me your special status for this food that I'm going to give to you. And Esau doesn't even seem to bring a counteroffer to the negotiation. I mean, you might be familiar with what happens next. In verse 32, it says, "Look, I'm dying of starvation," said Esau. "What good is my birthright to me now?" So in a terrible disregard for the consequences of his actions, Esau, in an impulsive instant, gave away the equivalent of hundreds of thousands of dollars, the respect and prestige of his role as the firstborn. He forfeited the prominent place in the family for not just his family at that particular moment, but all of his family going forward. It continues in verse 33, "But Jacob said, 'First you must swear that your birthright is mine.' So Esau swore an oath, thereby selling all his rights as the firstborn to his brother Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau some bread and lentil stew. Esau ate the meal, then got up and left. And he showed contempt for his rights as the firstborn." Now Esau, as we read forward in Scripture, would come to regret this decision. I mean, he has kind of a moment where he realizes, what have I done? And the full gravity of how his choice has impacted him finally lands on him, and this decision builds momentum in his life and takes him in a direction that he would later regret. You know, when we read this, it'd be pretty easy to just write Esau off as kind of a fool and kind of go, I would never do that, right? But I'd like to suggest to you today that we may be more like Esau than we'd like to admit. I mean, we can spend a lot of our lives reacting to problems we've inadvertently created instead of responding to life with the kind of godly wisdom we all really want to live in. But I would suggest today, until we're willing to admit that we may become as self-deceived from time to time as even Esau was, we may never discover what God is looking to share with us. It could be argued, and I would suggest today, that Esau's approach to life was actually rooted in a statement that maybe you've heard yourself make, or even a question that you've kind of phrased the exact same statement in. It's a question I've heard people ask themselves when they're making a decision, when they're facing a hard choice. They ask this as if it's a filter to say, how should I respond? They say, is this okay? Or I think this will be okay. And that kind of a statement, that kind of a question, I mean, it looks at what's happening, it makes a decision, and it assumes it could go either way. It could be okay or it might not be. Will it be good later? It's okay now. In Esau's case, he determined it was okay to give his birthright away because he needed food now. And because we can see the rest of the story, we understand it was not okay at all. I mean, we can be judgmental because we can see the end from the beginning. We can look at it and say, Esau, you're a fool, but too often we end up using the same filter in our decision-making grid, don't we? Is this okay to buy? I think it'll be okay to buy. Is it okay to do this? I think it'll be okay to do this. Is this okay to be part of this? Is this okay to put this off? And so we relegate a lot of our decisions, don't we, to the level of things just being okay in our life. But is that really the best that we can do? Is that really the way God longs for us to be able to live at a level that's just okay? I mean, as you know, there are a lot of times when we can look at a moment and say, well, you know what, this is okay. I mean, and a lot of us have had decisions that we've committed to, or money we've spent, or influences we've embraced, habits we've wrestled with, routines we've had to break out of because this has been our filter. We've started with that approach. Is this okay? And all of us have lived with or have watched people with significant regret and statements like, I wish I knew now. I wish I knew then what I know now. But it gets even harder when you start to roll into it that there are oftentimes decisions that we're making where there are situations that are not completely wrong. It's not about making a right or a wrong choice. It's about two shades of right sometimes. And sometimes it sounds like this in our heads, right? I mean, I know what I'm doing. This will be okay. Or, I think we can get away with this. I think it'll be okay. Or, we can handle this. I can handle this. It's going to be okay. And if we're honest and we're willing to see ourselves reflected a little bit in Esau today, then what we can see is we're pretty good at convincing ourselves that something is going to be okay. But sometimes later on we find out it's not as okay as we once thought. And it may be a small decision that leads to a turning point, or it may accumulate to make a whole bunch of momentum in our lives and takes us in a direction that we don't want to go. Because in both Esau and us, okay can become a path that leads us to self-deception and regret, and maybe digging out of a lot of stuff we didn't think we were going to have to deal with. And in the case of even in our family, it could have led us to the brink of disaster, because it could have been a parent's worst nightmare. Early one Saturday morning, I was away, and one of our children opened the front door and ended up walking across the street as a 5-year-old and rang the doorbell of the neighbor's house. Our friend picked up our 5-year-old who was looking for his mother, confused and unsure of why he was outside. And later on, we discovered he was thinking he had wakened up from a nap, and since my wife had been talking with the neighbor the previous day across the street, he made the assumption she was still there because he'd wakened up from a nap. But in fact, he had wakened up from his night sleep and was looking around the house for Mom. She was not in the room. She was not in the kitchen. She was not in one of the bathrooms. He didn't look in the baby's room, where she had, in fact, gone in to help the baby settle, and then my wife had fallen asleep there overnight. So he wakes up and is looking for Mom, remembers that she's been at the neighbor's house, and strolls out into the street around, the time of commuting, knocks on the neighbor's door, and looking for Mom, the neighbor kind of scoops him up and brings him back over, rings the doorbell, and that didn't wake anybody up. So he's wondering, is there some problem? Why is nobody answering the door? So he wanders around to the back and is kind of checking through the windows, carrying our young son, and my wife is awakened to a prowling neighbor looking through the window and kind of spooked to see our son with that neighbor. I got home and kind of understood the whole situation and heard the story, and this decision that we had been procrastinating, which was to put a storm door on the front of our home, we went out and took care of it right away, because we knew we needed some kind of second level stopping point for our children, who were now at the place where they could open doors and kind of find their way through different things. And the folks at the store helped us get an extra latch that you could put up high and could click over as a stopgap for our growing family and their new prowess of unlocking and opening doors, and them finding themselves into places of peril. And so this is, like I said, had been a decision we'd postponed for some time, but it could have cost us dearly. I mean, when you think about all the moments that are in there as a parent, I just shudder. I mean, the street, a 5-year-old alone, not able to find his mother, wandering the neighborhood. We know we dodged a bullet that day. Our lives could have taken a tragic, irreversible turn because of a procrastinated decision, a decision that's, oh, it's okay for us not to do that right now. And too often we make decisions like that, right? I mean, it's okay to postpone the things we need to do. It's okay to get distracted and, with things that are maybe not needed, but sometimes we can find ourselves in messes that we could have avoided. And sometimes the way we treat that is, well, if I'd only known what was going to happen. So what can we do? Because we know we can't see all of the future. We know we don't know everything that's about to happen. And we know we're going to make mistakes. So what should we do to make better decisions than the kind that Esau was making and the kind that are just okay? Paul's talking to the Ephesians when he says in chapter 5, verse 15, he makes this statement. And I think this kind of helps us a little bit when he says, so be careful how you live. Don't live like fools, but like those who are wise. So what does somebody who's wise live like? What would it look like to make wise choices in life? Like we said, we can't know everything, and we're going to make mistakes along the way. But we could at least reduce some of our regretful decisions, couldn't we? I mean, could we even change the odds on some of the ones so that it's better than just an okay decision? Because in Esau's case, an okay moment turned out to be foolish, like not so okay after all. But to live like those who are wise, what if that was our decision-making grid, our filter? Maybe a question like, okay, is this the wise thing to do? I mean, we could look past maybe something that's just okay, and maybe we can take a second look as a result of asking a different question. Maybe it could help us as we're weighing out things that are, two sides of right. They're not necessarily wrong. Like if we're dealing with, is it this job or that job, or is it this purchase or not, or is it this activity or that? Because we all face those kind of decisions that are not completely wrong. The decisions that are clearly wrong, hopefully they're a little bit easier for us to choose, but it's the ones that are multiple shades of right that are challenging sometimes. So a question that does help me from time to time and that could have helped Esau, and if you choose to be a part of it, it could even help all of us. And it starts with, what is the wise thing to do in light of where I've been and who I am now and who God is helping me to become? What is the wise thing to do? I think about where I've been, my experiences, my troubles, and some of the challenges and the habits and things that I've wrestled with, or who I am now, and the current stage of life and the roles that I have as a part of life, or the people that are around me. Or I think about who God is helping me to become, like as I live with increasing clarity and as He's continuing to heal my life and I'm trusting Him more and more. What is the wise thing to do based on all those things? I mean, what if Esau had asked that kind of a question about this negotiation around a meal and his birthright? Maybe it could have sounded a little bit like this in Esau's head. Like, okay, I'm the firstborn, and if I'm going to fulfill who I'm growing to become, this meal for the birthright, that's not a good deal. Maybe I should think twice about this option. Maybe I should find some food elsewhere. What do you think that could have done for his future if he'd had that internal dialogue? Could that pause have changed his future? I mean, he may not have even become the head of the family someday, but at the very least, the bitterness of being deceived could have been much, much different. And Jacob had his part to play too, but Esau's impulsivity combined with this poor filter created all kinds of family havoc, didn't it? So maybe we can learn from Esau today. I mean, maybe there are some places where we can steer clear of some of the larger problems of life by asking a question that could become a better filter, a question that could help us with our decision-making grid. It could grow stronger, more mature, stronger at least in direction than just living lives that are okay. Because who wants to settle for life that's just okay? So for instance, if we kind of ran into some kind of situation where, here's something that comes up, and if we find ourselves in that position, it could kind of remind us of some of the things that we've struggled with in the past. But it's okay to do this. I mean, we don't have to struggle with things again. So is it okay to go for it? Or do we say, based on who we've been and who we are now and who God is leading us to become, what is the wise thing to do right there? Maybe we face an opportunity that seems like just an incredible deal, and it seems like it's okay to just scoop it up. But then we kind of maybe process it based on our expressed desire to grow in generosity to the mission of God. Well, then what is the wise thing to do on this? In the case of our wandering child, based on our desire to help our children think twice about the doors that they're going to open so that they don't put themselves in peril, and find a safe way to stop them from just barreling out into the street as we're teaching them some of that impulse control. What is the wise thing to do here? How quickly should we respond to this challenge that we have? How long do we wait? Until after a tragedy has occurred? Now, a question like that can really cause us to take a moment and pause, right? To think twice, and maybe, just maybe, the wisdom God longs for us to be able to appreciate and to grow into might be found in that pause, based on who we've been, who we are now, who God is leading us to become. What is the wise thing to do? Esau's life kind of serves as a warning for us, doesn't it? I mean, all of us have moments that we may not see as key turning points. They sometimes just present us small decisions at the time, things that look like they're just okay. And there's a lot of moments in life where it seems like we need to act now, or we've got to get this done now. We can't wait any longer. And so we can end up asking a question like, is this okay? Or I think this is going to be okay. I think I'm going to be okay. And we choose to trust that okay is the best decision we can make. But as we said, I just don't think any of us today want to live a life that's just okay. And so I trust that the next time those kind of words come out of our mouths, that we're willing to think twice and pause and maybe even ask a better kind of question. A question like we've discussed maybe today, a better filter, a humbling grid, so to speak, to work through decisions. What is the wise thing to do based on who I've been and who I am now and where God is leading me? Because we can all spend a lot of our lives reacting to problems we've inadvertently created instead of responding to life with the kind of godly wisdom we all want to exemplify. So, I think when we start to admit that we could be as self-deceived as Esau was, that's when we can start to discover what God is looking to share with us. Let me pray for us today. Jesus, we're grateful for the stories of people, and that they are real people who encountered real situations in the same way we do. And there's a lot of different scenarios that happen in our lives, we encounter on a daily basis, and sometimes the best decision that we have come to has come as a result of us saying this is okay. But I think you're trying to point us in a direction where we can do better, because you've shared with us what it means to understand the wisdom of God as we look at life, based on who we've been, based on who we are now, and based on who we're continuing to become. What is the wise thing to do? Thank you for the fact that you use people like Esau to shape our lives, and we can learn from their mistakes, because we don't have time to make all the mistakes we need to make to learn everything we need to learn. And so we we look to them and we thank you for them to be able to help us to be able to step on their shoulders and make wise decisions in the days we find ourselves in. And so I thank you. I pray that you'll remind us often that really you have life that is so much more full than just okay. In your name I pray. Amen.
Thanks again for joining us today. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channels, or if you're watching this on Facebook, then you can like and follow us there. And it would mean so much to us if you took a moment to comment, like, and share this video so that others are able to enjoy it as well. And hey, if you're in the Kingston area, come on out. We would love to see you. Please know though that you are loved and that we're praying for you. And we certainly appreciate your prayers too. We'll see you soon.